egotistical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Superfan Takeover here on the Saturday Night Network. My name is Sammy Kay, and this is the show where a couple of SNL superfans get together to reminisce on important moments from the history of SNL. With Thanksgiving right around the corner, we decided that we are going to discuss our favorite Thanksgiving sketches of all time. You know, we've already done Christmas, we've already done Halloween. Now it's Thanksgiving's turn to enter the Superfan Takeover universe. Before we dive into the categories for tonight, I want to bring in the panel. I'm extra thankful to be back here with the OG Superfan crew. And first, I'm going to introduce my friend Andrew Haskell. Haskell, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Sammy. Excited to be with you guys. Every time I feel like I'm just getting enough sleep, I always get that text from Sammy that's like, hey, you need to do some deep dives and some YouTube dives into some old SNL content. So every few weeks I get that text, but always worth it. Excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, and Haskell, it sounds like you've been having a busy week. Are you hanging in there? I know you're kind of running late tonight, and you made it in time. You hanging in there?
Yeah, it's a busy week. I've been at work for way too many hours. I have luckily a lot of stand-up shows this week, which is awesome. And a little peek behind the curtain. We're recording this thing late night for us. We're way off schedule. I almost brought a blanket down here into my little studio, kind of nap. But I'll pull through.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. You know, and if you do need to get a blanket at some point during the show, like just let us know, man. Like, go get that blanket. And next up, the other Andrew H on the show, as always, Andrew Haynes. Haynes, how you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome. I'm so excited about this episode. It's my favorite time of year. Just this long stretch of holidays from Halloween to New Year's. I look forward to this section of the year all year. I'm not a summer guy. I'm like a fall, winter guy. My birthday was this week. I have season tickets to NC State football with my family, and my mom and sister surprised me and hooked us up with sideline passes. So I got to watch the NC State game from the sidelines and be down there with the football team. Scotty McCreery, country music legend or star, whatever you call him, was standing right beside us. Yeah, maybe not a legend, but it was fun. So I've had a great weekend, and just looking forward to talking Thanksgiving with you guys.
That's awesome, man. And finally, we got the great Bill Kenney. Bill, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing so good, Sammy. Excited to do this. Just much like the real Thanksgiving. This got shafted last year in honor of Halloween and Christmas. It kind of got looked over. I give my daughter a lot of shit because she wants to start singing the Christmas songs this early. I said, no, Thanksgiving is important too, and we're showing that tonight. So I'm excited to get into it.
That's awesome. And Bill, I feel like you always put us to shame when it comes to your prep for these, super fan episodes. So I have two questions for you specifically. When did you start prepping for this pod, and how many sketches do you think you watched?
Started prepping about 10 minutes after the text came, and probably watched about 60 sketches. I don't know, thereabouts. There's not as many. This isn't as deep of a bench as some of the other holidays. So not as much out there, but definitely went through the plethora of them.
Yeah, sounds like we might have watched the same YouTube playlist, because I think I might have. This might be an SNL Superfan Takeover first, where we might have watched the same amount of sketches going into an episode. Before we dive into the categories, Bill kind of brought up that point of how there's a lot of Christmas sketches, there's a lot of Halloween sketches, and not so many kind of Thanksgiving sketches to choose from. I mean, obviously Thanksgiving happens every year. Do you guys, if anyone wants to chime in, do you guys do you see a reason as to why there's not as many Thanksgiving sketches? Do you think it's just like maybe the show saves those ideas for, Christmas in a couple of weeks because it's, obviously about family and whatnot? But I just found that to be interesting.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Sammy. I think a lot of the themes that they hit for Thanksgiving just end up getting hit for Christmas. But I think it's kind of interesting. I am an unabashed, I start Christmas early. And every time somebody tells me like, oh, you got to worry about Thanksgiving, I ask for the Thanksgiving culture. right? I can only watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles so many times. But it's interesting. Outside of like a few other TV shows, SNL has given us like the most like Thanksgiving culture. And we'll get into a lot of those, but it's pretty interesting. The one thing that I totally noticed, I'm sure we will get into this though, that how many sketches did you guys watch this week where that had a recurring character thrown into a Thanksgiving setting? It was pretty amazing for me. So I think that kind of plays into it a little bit too on like, that seems to be a part of their formula. And that's maybe why we haven't gotten a ton of Thanksgiving content, is because they usually save that for their recurring characters.
And I think part of it is scheduling too. I think depending on the year, like we saw it this year, they didn't have a week before Thanksgiving episode. So they didn't do any Thanksgiving themed stuff leading into it. And it's very telling when they have the best of Thanksgiving SNL that a lot of those sketches aren't even Thanksgiving. So you've got a lot of family dinners and things like that, but they're not, they aired in February or March or, so it's kind of interesting even with SNL not knowing how to put together a best of Thanksgiving, but we're going to try to outdo them tonight.
So these are all great points already, but I will say, so I have a tradition, and probably many other people who love TV might also do this, but for every holiday, I like to go through my favorite shows and watch the episodes. Like if I'm doing a 30 Rock binge during the summer and going through every season, I skip all the Christmas episodes, make sure I save them for Christmas, So yeah, as you guys said, SNL has given us more Thanksgiving stuff than anything else. And honestly, as I was digging back through this stuff, there was more than I kind of expected. I was worried I was really going to be scraping the barrel, but there's plenty to talk about. So I think we should have a good show.
Yeah, definitely plenty to talk about. So let's dive right in to the categories, because there's not as many sketches as Halloween or Christmas. We usually do like 4 categories. We decided to do 3 tonight. Maybe if we have time at the end, we'll hit some sketches that we may have missed that we want to shout out. But the categories that we're going to be using to kind of navigate our conversation tonight are live sketch, pre-tape, and wild card. So wild card could be something that doesn't fall into those other 2 categories, or if there's something you want to shout out. We play fast and loose with the rules here on the Superfan Takeovers. So let's start with the first category, which is live sketch. And Haskell, I'm going to start with you. What are you going to bring to the table tonight?
Yeah, so I went through and I did my sketches, and I had a sketch that I was pretty sure I was going to choose because it's a favorite of mine. And then I had a moment going back, and this is one of my favorite things where you go, "Oh, I forgot about this sketch." So I'm going to go with, we're going to do the turkey dance. We're going back to Friendsgiving. Steve Carell's hosting, and it's him and Cecily Strong at Friendsgiving, and they're talking about the Thanksgiving song. And I love the sketch because of what I just mentioned, where I'm like, where's the Thanksgiving culture? And they make this song up kind of on the spot. And by the end of the sketch, everybody sort of caught on to it. I'm such a sucker for this kind of sketch where the confidence of these people that are like, this thing is made up, but they have all the confidence in the world. They did a very similar sketch in season 39 with Woody Harrelson, the Apple song. I'm going to say something that might sound a little controversial. I don't think amongst fans it might be that controversial. I think the last few go-arounds for Steve Carell as a host have not necessarily lived up to what you would expect with somebody of the caliber of Steve Carell coming in. This sketch is the complete opposite. It's one of my favorite Steve Carell sketches ever. It definitely is one of my favorite Thanksgiving sketches ever. And just a few extra notes that I had on that. There's a recurring theme in the song about his thing getting scared and not working. And it's this love song, but they never really have sex because this thing is scared and he's embarrassed by that. And then lastly, once everybody in the sketch, it's Leslie Jones, Beck Bennett, Kate McKinnon, and Kenan Thompson with them. Kenan belts out with this really good, like kind of semi Bruce Springsteen impression that I kind of wish he would bring out more on the show. So once everybody starts singing, it's one of those sketches where you can see how much fun everybody in the cast is having. So that's my selection for Thanksgiving live sketch.
There you go. So you picked Friendsgiving from the Steve Carell hosted episode. I feel like there's a theme of a lot of Thanksgiving songs in a lot of these Thanksgiving sketches, which I found to be interesting on my rewatch. Bill or Haynes, do you guys have any thoughts on this sketch?
It's better than the other Steve Carell Thanksgiving sketch that's very infamous, which I would be surprised if someone brings up from that same episode. But yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. I'm a sucker for these as well. I love seeing, the kind of dawning figuring out of everybody knowing what the song is, and after they insist that they didn't, and Kenan being the button on that. So yeah, this is a lot of fun. Good Thanksgiving sketch.
I definitely really enjoy this one a lot too. It was definitely on my list of ones that I was considering. I just love we said this is a thing that they've done before. Someone singing a song and other people pretending like they don't know it until they start to catch on. But it is this song is it's full of so many specific, strange lines. It's definitely not apparent that other people are going to start catching on when Cecily's like, oh, it's like, yeah, da, 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 and she starts singing a line, and then Steve Carell sings a line, and then it goes back, and someone's like, do you guys know each other? And they're supposed to be like completely random people, and definitely, watching this sketch, you're starting to think like, okay, these people must know each other. They're bringing out the keyboard, and now they're doing like a whole shtick. And I just love the way, she vanishes. Cecily's character disappears, and they're like, where did she go? Gone in the night. And Steve Carell just says, I loved her, or something like that to end the sketch. This is a great one. Absolutely love it. Great pick.
Well, there you go. So we're going to move back over to Bill Kenney to give us his live sketch for this episode. What do you got for us?
Well, there was a lot to choose from, and one of the funnest and most difficult things about these Superfan Takeovers is debating among yourself what you're going to pick. And I was down to about 3, and I just had a really hard time. But I went with, I couldn't pass up the opportunity on a Superfan Takeover to have the Superfans finally appear in a Superfan Takeover. So I'm going back to season 17, Bill Swirsky's Superfans. They're sitting in their bar waiting for the Bears playing on Thanksgiving Day. And you've got the regular cast of characters in Smigel and Farley and Mike Myers and George Wendt. And one of the fun things about this one is, they were kind of cut and paste, boilerplate. But this went a little bit further. They brought in the kids because Macaulay Culkin was hosting that week. And we get a preview of Succession star Kieran Culkin, his brother, delivering a few of the lines. And, it's otherwise it's a lot of the same tropes. Farley having a heart attack, but he's not actually having a heart attack. He's choking on a pork chop. You've got the underrated and underused Beth Cahill coming in, flirting with Farley, and then Farley imagining his wife, who's also Farley, who wants him to just come home and, you're my dit guy. You're my dit guy. And it just, it's a very long sketch, but these always worked for me. This was a great recurring sketch in the early 90s. And if you haven't watched this one in a while, I highly recommend it. So the Superfans, Bill Swirsky's Superfans.
Yeah, this was definitely one that I thought about potentially bringing up for the show tonight, but you beat me to the punch. This not only is this obviously it's a Thanksgiving themed rendition of this recurring sketch, which I think they did like over 10 times. So, they got a lot of mileage out of this one, but, it involves football and involves, obscene amount of food. It involves Chicago and like the Midwest. And I associate like the cold with Thanksgiving. So, it makes perfect sense that they, did a Thanksgiving rendition of this one. Haskell or Haynes, do you have any thoughts on the Superfans Thanksgiving sketch?
It's funny difference of opinions for me. So a lot of times when I do research for these takeovers, like I'll watch those playlists with my wife, who was not a huge SNL fan before meeting me. And I was watching the sketch and I was like, wow, I forgot this is probably my favorite version of this sketch. And it probably does the most with these characters. And she looked at me and went, you're not going to put this on your list, are you? It's too long. And it is definitely a different era of SNL in terms of sketch length and how much they would draw out these characters, and how some of these sketches would really have like acts to them. But it's still super fun. And like I said, it's a version of that sketch that I really like, because I do think they do a lot more with the characters than maybe they had done in a lot of the other handful of times that we saw that sketch.
Yeah, this is the thing that I love about these Superfans sketches. I don't know, maybe because they were obviously well received enough that they were, making their way into what people consider like classic sketches. When I was first getting into SNL, even though, this is only a handful of years earlier in real world time, but there is something so warm and nostalgic about these Superfan sketches. And that's also kind of like the Thanksgiving vibe, it's just this big warm thing, and you're back with family and people are telling stories. And so this is just a big warm sketch. It is long. I think it's about 8 minutes. But I mean, everyone loves the Superfans. We obviously love the Superfans. And it's just, to me, this sketch really has it just has the feeling of Thanksgiving, in a way that not every Thanksgiving sketch does, but this one really does. And it's a great pick. I mean, Chris Farley is just so sweet. I know that we all know that. And seeing him as the "You're My Dicka" thing that Bill was doing. I mean, it's as good as it gets. Love Farley in drag. He's great, and so just a fantastic sketch.
Yeah, and one last thing to add before we move on to your pick, Haynes. But I had written down, there's the part where they're all comparing their scars. They're all explaining, how they got their scars, and Chris Farley had he has less of a scar, more of a burn. And he said he was scolded by the cheese of a flaming hot nacho, which is fantastic. And doesn't that just put you in the Thanksgiving spirit? I know it does for me. All right, Haynes, let's go to your pick here for this category.
All right. So as Bill was saying, very hard having these kind of internal debates. What are we going to end up picking? We've named some great ones already. So, and there is a lot to go through. We could do stuff from any era, but one that it's a little more recent, but I always get a really good laugh out of. I love the satire in it, and I love the fact that it may include it does include arguably the greatest cast member of all time in Will Ferrell. So I want to talk about First Thanksgiving from season 45, I believe. And this is Will Ferrell and Melissa Villaseñor, Fred Armisen, Maya Rudolph, and Beck Bennett. So this is back, I guess, at the first Thanksgiving, and immediately, we're kind of satiring this nativist culture of being scared of immigrants, which is obviously something that, it's been talked about and exists in our nation's history throughout, but in 2016 or whatever this was, certainly was kind of flaring up. And so we've got Will Ferrell as the grandpa, who immediately is everyone else is playing a Native American. And we've got Beck Bennett as the colonists, the English colonists. And immediately Will Ferrell is referring to him as a paleface. And people are just very, everyone else in the family is mortified, oh God, grandpa, please, not this again. And he's saying stuff like, oh, what? We can't say that now. And so we get this sketch where, basically he's got a lot of problems with Beck Bennett because he's white. He's a colonist who's coming here. But it's got some other jokes built in there. They're getting to know each other, and someone, maybe Maya, says to Beck's character, oh, so you're about to turn 30? And he's like, yes, that's right. And she goes, and you do know she's 12? And he's like, yes, it should be great. And then Will Ferrell comes back in and he's saying stuff like, basically Beck Bennett has to run to the bathroom. So he's stepping out a couple of times. And that's when we get to see Will Ferrell kind of like show off his racist side. And he's saying like, for Thanksgiving, I hope we finally build that wall. And they're saying, oh my gosh, where do you hear this stuff? And he said, Fox. And then Melissa makes a joke like, you got to stop talking to that crazy Fox. And he has a good comeback in like, it's not any worse than that kooky peacock you listen to. So a little bit meta right there. It's just a really fun sketch. He pretends like, oh, maybe he's stealing. He refers to him as illegals. They said, oh, come on, Grandpa. He's not a thief. He's not stealing. He's just like, I'm just saying, since the colonists have showed up, a lot of stuff has gone missing. Buffalo, land. And so we get a lot of jokes here. And then eventually what brings them together in the spirit of Thanksgiving is that they all find corn in their stools. And I guess this is a thing that happens to all of us. But even though you eat a lot of corn, it's really only 3 or 4 pieces. And so this is what brings them together. And then, of course, we have the breaking of the fourth wall at the end where after the sketch ends, Ferrell's character stands up and says, hi, folks, I'm Will Ferrell. There's a lot of problems with the sketch. We've got white actors playing natives. I mean, what is this, 2014? And so we got this little meta outro. It's just as far as recent Thanksgiving goes, I think this is about as good as it gets. That's the end of my diatribe.
That's a good pick. Haynes, you're really able to just paint a picture. I feel like I watched the entire sketch in the last 3 minutes here. That's a great pick. Bill or Haskell, either of you have any thoughts on the first Thanksgiving sketch?
Well, it's hard to add on to, like you said, Haynes painted such a great picture. That episode is so fantastic. And it's kind of funny, the amount of, racism jokes that find their way into the Thanksgiving sketches. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but yeah, I mean, this was great. It hit all the spots. This was a modern classic by all takes. So, and who doesn't love Will Ferrell coming back and hosting? So this was a great pick.
And I think this sketch does something that I think more comedy, either comedians or comedy shows or just comedy writing in general could use right now. And Haynes touched on it, which is like admitting that like when Will Ferrell comes out and says, yeah, there was a lot wrong with this sketch. Instead of coming out and being like, well, we're not allowed to play these people. We're just doing comedy. Like he admits like, yeah, hey, there's a lot wrong with this sketch. Okay. We get it. Which I think if more comedy shows, more comedians leaned into, they would get more leeway in terms of the jokes that they are making. And the joke that you mentioned where they kind of poke fun at, Beck Bennett's age versus, Melissa's character is an important one because I do think there is if they don't make that joke, if they don't poke fun at Beck Bennett's character, there is the chance for the door to open up and be like, wait a second, are you writing a sketch where like the white guy's the victim when he's the colonizer? So that's kind of an important joke in the sketch for me because it does poke fun at everybody. So I think that sketch is a really good sketch at showing how you can poke fun at both sides at the same time, and then comes together with a great Thanksgiving message of like, hey, let's all come together. We're all people. And then just quick, lastly, you got to give credit for a sketch that highlights Melissa Villaseñor, which did not happen enough during her tenure on the show.
Yeah, no, those are all great points, Haskell. You're kind of coming in with a hug, bringing the audience in with the sketch instead of like you're saying, kind of being like, I'm mad we can't make these jokes because things haven't aged well. And I feel like Thanksgiving there's a lot of ground to kind of things that have or have not aged well with like just the story of Thanksgiving and how, this country was formed. So really interesting, really good pick there, Haynes. All right. I'm in between on a couple of things. Going last, it's like I always got to make sure I have a couple options here. And I think I'm going to go with, I wasn't going to do recurring characters, but I think, I would be upset if I didn't bring up this family. They did this a couple times on the show, and it wasn't until I started podcasting on this network that I got the impression from other people that people didn't love the Volga-checks. I love the Volga-checks. Maybe it's because, as me and Haskell talk about all the time, this is from our era of the show. But, they did a Thanksgiving rendition. If you guys aren't familiar with the Volga-checks or the Kissing family, which is, how it's named on YouTube, the premise is basically, there's this family, this over-affectionate family, the Volga-checks with, Fred Armisen, Kristin, Wiig, Bill Hader, and they're welcoming in this rendition of the sketch, Jason Segel and his girlfriend, Vanessa Bayer, home for Thanksgiving. And, as the Volga-checks tend to do, they are, over compassionate with the PDA that you would do with someone that's not your family member. But in this case, they are all family. And, it's not the smartest writing, I'll admit that. It's just good, kind of gross out humor. And they did this so many times, and they had to figure out, okay, how do we, up the ante to do this like 6 or 7 times and make it, grosser and grosser. And this one, involves Thanksgiving. So, they have homeless people, coming or, from shelters to like get food. And Andy Samberg comes in as a homeless person. And, Bill Hader is feeding him, I think first there's a corn on the cob that him and maybe Kristin Wiig share, and they're just eating the entire corn on the cob, Lady and the Tramp style. And something I really thought was funny was the Bill Hader, the brother character, comes in and he starts spitting like Brussels sprouts in his mouth. And he's like, "What? You got any gravy?" And he spits like a whole thing of gravy in his beard, and it's all in his beard. And I don't know. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this sketch, because obviously they did this a couple times, but I think they did the Volga-check sketches around the holidays a lot, or even for the finales when like people would come back who had left to host. So I always associated like this recurring sketch with kind of, even though they did it so many times, like a special time of year, and it just makes sense with like the theme of family, even if it's a overly affectionate family that you wouldn't want to necessarily be the Vanessa Bayer character in the scenario and come over there for Thanksgiving. I don't know. I just think these sketches were all so funny. It's with my era of the cast, and it's one that if you're picking recurring sketches to kind of put in that best of Thanksgiving special every year, I feel like you got to go with the Volga-checks. So yeah, that's my pick here. Does anyone want to jump in on the Volga-checks Thanksgiving?
Well, fans, people might not like that sketch, but for me, I don't know. I guess we're just little super fans of the Volga-checks. I love this sketch. The Volga-checks have always been one of my favorites. There's something about that cast. When you go back and you look at that cast, like, you could do hours of research. I cannot find many reports or anything of problems between those cast members. Like, that core has and you go through all other eras of the show. There's these talks of like, well, these two people didn't get along, or these two people hated each other. It doesn't come up in that cast almost ever. And I think these sketches in the gross out humor of the over affection, it just underscores how close this core of cast was, that they were willing to do all of this together over and over and over again. And it shows how game somebody like Andy Samberg is, and obviously the respect and the friendship he has with somebody like Bill Hader to spit on him like he did. And they always like brought the family back together. It's one of those sketches that like they never like recast. Like, anytime somebody new showed up, they would just like kind of explain like why it fit in, which I really liked. Jay Ferrell has a great appearance in the sketch where he walks in. He's like, "Nope, not these people." And I feel like there was probably a cut line in there somewhere about them being white. I don't know. The last thing I'll say about this sketch is we do need Sandberg or Hader or somebody to come back and host so we can get the Volga-checks again, because we got to get Sarah Sherman into these Volga-check sketches, and we got to see how that plays out, because I would love to see that.
That is such a good point that I didn't think about. I remember last year going into the Paul Rudd episode before that was canceled because of COVID. I had thought, oh, we need a Volga-checks sketch post-COVID. At that time, still kind of, re-emerging into the world and figuring out how they would do that. And, maybe that would be like the sign of things are finally back to normal sort of thing. But Bill or Haynes, any thoughts on this before we move on to the next category?
These were never my favorite, just by the sheer amount of them that they did. But being half Italian and bringing a girlfriend home for a holiday or from college, and her seeing us kiss and hug, and everybody's cousins or nothing obviously to this ridiculous level, but
whatever,
so it was,
Bill.
it was somewhat relatable to a certain extent. But my favorite part of these sketches were always Fred. Fred, as Haskell just so perfectly did, bringing it all together at the end and shaming the person who's so embarrassed to be there. That was always a great part for me. And, this, as a Thanksgiving sketch, this works a lot. So, yeah, good pick.
Yeah, I mean, you know exactly what you're getting with these sketches. But I mean, obviously the thing that's funny is how gross it is. So, and kissing family members remains gross to me to this day. So, so it's like, I still, I would still get great laughs out of these every time. Great point that Haskell was making, about someone coming back to host. When former cast members come back, often other people show up, and we have a little bit of a reunion. Would love to see something like that happen. Maybe SNL 50, who knows? But the Volga-checks sketches are funny. This one was great. So yeah, great pick.
All right, cool. Let's move on now to the next category here for pre-tape. So these are, pre-tape sketches. You guys watch this show. You know what a pre-tape is. We're going to start with Bill here on this one. Bill, what are you going to bring to the table for your pre-tape category?
We tend to be polite on these Superfan takeovers and leave the obvious ones, the lazy Sundays of the groups and things like that. I'm not doing that this time. I'm sorry. I am taking a modern classic, maybe the greatest moment of the last 7 years of SNL. I'm going with Thanksgiving Miracle, otherwise known as Hello by Adele. This was such a fantastic pre-tape. And to set it up, you have family sitting around the table, and you've got the younger people and the older people, and they're kind of talking, and they start to get into what happens with these larger families with differing opinions, different political sides, and 80, as one of the aunts starts getting racist and talking about the wall. This is right after Trump had announced that he was running for president, so emotions were high already in 2015, and Cecily and Jay trying to, rein her in a little bit, and the yelling starts, and the little girl gets up and presses the CD player, and Hello starts playing by Adele. And, they all start singing, but it escalates from there. If they had just done that, it would have been fine. But now Kate comes in as the grandmother that she always played, and starts talking about the transgender people that she saw at the airport, and they didn't exist when I was young. And Cecily corrects her and says that's ridiculous. They were scared, and so the little girl presses the music again, and now we've turned into the actual Adele video. They're all wearing the fur coats that Adele is wearing. It's black and white. Their fingernails have grown. And everybody's just getting along as they sing Hello. And it was just such a perfect moment. These things could get very political and very bipartisan, or very partisan very quickly. And I think this was a good way to show that we can talk about things and still get along. by the power of music and comedy. So that's my pick.
Yeah, no, Bill, you're being a little selfish here, picking that one, taking that one off the board. As the host, I don't have that. I don't have that ability. So, I'm thankful for you guys. I hope you guys are thankful for me for that reason. But the Thanksgiving Miracle. This is a really good pick. Something I wrote down in my notes for this one is it has 23 million views, which is a lot. Like there's another sketch that I think we'll probably talk about here in a minute that has about half of that, and I found that to be a very viral, huge kind of Thanksgiving sketch as well. So this was like a moment. This is one of the sketches that like I remember my sisters, who I feel like I sometimes bring up on the show as a barometer for kind of people who aren't so well versed in SNL or care about it. And this is one that was definitely they were talking to me about at that time. So Haskell, you want to jump in here on Thanksgiving Miracle?
It's pronounced thermometer. That's a Seinfeld cut for anybody. My apologies. Like you just said, Sammy, this was a moment in time. Like this is when you go back and you watch SNL, when you see these clip shows of Thanksgiving or any holiday, you want to be put right back in that moment. And, this moment's very real for a lot of us, right? Because this sketch takes place kind of really at the beginning of this great political divide. Obviously, politics have always divided people, but 2015 and on, things have been really divided. And it brings you right back to kind of the beginning of that and seeing how this all played out. And it's interesting, and it's one of the reasons that I really like choosing this sketch too, is that it takes place at Thanksgiving dinner, which I don't know how many, we have a few more categories left, obviously. I don't know exactly how many are going to be like straight up at Thanksgiving dinner. So that's why I also think it's a definitive sketch for that era of the show, but it's also clearly a very definitive sketch for SNL Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So this is, it certainly is a modern classic. When Bill said he was going with a modern classic, I wondered if he was going to say this or something else that we might mention, and maybe Sammy has already alluded to with, probably 12 million, watches or however many it's got. Because there have been some true modern classics with the pre-tapes. This is fantastic from top to bottom. One of the things that, first of all, the jokes, that dance, that line, that edgy line, where, with old people being racist and that kind of stuff. I mean, those are funny. And yeah, Matthew McConaughey's character, referring to and talking about, transgender people and saying like, it's an interesting trend, or something like that. So it's full of very funny stuff. 80, leaning, oh my God, when she leans over to Jay Farrow and she's like, let me ask you a question. Why are your friends always antagonizing the police, or something like that? It's like, oh my God. One thing that is, and this seems to be a constant theme, because I guess maybe this is the way it is in the world for some people, is that these Thanksgiving dinners with other, relatives coming in is we have this clash of values. That's something that I luckily have never had to experience in my life. Not that every person on, in my family on either side are completely politically aligned, but at least everyone's polite enough not to talk about it at Thanksgiving. But this sketch, it's got the great jokes, and then as Bill was talking about, now you take on the evolution. Or the maybe metamorphosis is a better word, since the characters are changing into Adele as this goes on, and 80 really really looks like her spot on at the very end. But they're adding these layers as they start to become Adele, and I think the first one that really jumps out at you is Beck's fingernails when he holds them up to his face. So you see those fingernails popped out, and I didn't know if it was going to stop right there, and then the girls start getting the fur jackets on, or everybody's getting the fur jackets on. And then when you see that blonde hair flowing from Jay Farrow's head, it's so funny. So this is, as we said, modern classic, pretty much as good as it gets as far as Thanksgiving sketches go.
Well said there, Haynes. Let's stick with you, and let's hear what your pre-tape is that you've brought for the episode.
Gosh, man, this is so tough because I'm gonna leave the one that we alluded to, so that, and if no one wants to pick it, then maybe we'll talk about it later anyway, just because it was so good. Gosh, this is really hard for me. I'm going to go with a very old classic, and that's because, well, it's funny, and I lived through the era. If people don't know, maybe there are some younger folks who don't know that there was a time once when you could see right through your Pepsi. It was as clear as day. And so this is Crystal Gravy, and just, it kind of parodies this product at the time for some reason, and my brother and I were super into it. Pepsi decided to make clear Pepsi for like a year or 6 months. It was very short lived, and basically they also, to present us this Crystal Gravy, this clear gravy, which is very jarring, when you see it being poured over the over the mashed potatoes and stuff. They also set it to parody what was a very famous Van Halen music video. And sorry, to my Van Halen heads out there, I don't remember exactly, if it was 1987 or whenever it came out. It was earlier than the Crystal Pepsi was like 94 or something. But this video, they're playing the Van Halen music, and the Van Halen video, because I used to watch, MTV do their, 20 greatest music videos of all time and stuff. I've seen this video a ton, and it's very epic, and it's showing like, pollution and deforestation and, and war. And like, it's like the world needs to change, like, what are you going to do about it kind of vibe, like before the song kicks in. And so that's the way they're setting up this Crystal Pepsi. They're like, the earth wasn't created in 7 days, and why can't we live cleaner? Like, you don't have to take what you're given. We're hungry for something better. And then, of course, the thing that they reveal is clear gravy, which, yeah, I'm sure it's just some sort of epoxy or something that they're pouring over everything. But it's really hilarious and gross looking. If you haven't seen this, I'm sure a lot of our fans have. But they're putting little phrases, on the screen to kind of back narrate this and stuff. They're pouring it over the mashed potatoes, and you see something run across the top that says like, I don't see any lumps. Yeah, because you don't see anything. It's funny. And then Kevin Nealon is like splashing it on his face in the shower, like an Herbal Essences commercial or something. And so to me, this is just, it's gross and stupid. And, what more do you want from SNL? So, and to tie it into Thanksgiving, I just think it works. So I'm glad I got to bring this to the table.
Yeah, so to kind of go back to what you said before about how this is a bit of a throwback, and that Crystal Pepsi was even a thing. I watched this sketch, which I had seen before, but I watched today, and I was like, this. I don't get like what the joke is here. Like, this is supposed to like look like I was getting some thoughts that looked like jizz, and then I. In my notes, I'm like, oh, it's about Crystal Pepsi. Got it. Yeah, so that just kind of dates me, and also my sense of humor. Bill, let's go over to you first. What are your thoughts on Crystal Pepsi?
Well, I mean, perfect. This was going to be my pick if I didn't get Adele, because it was so perfect, and it kind of saddens me that the joke is lost if you weren't there. But and not only was it based on Right Now by Van Halen, but that was also the ad campaign that they had for Crystal Pepsi. So,
was it?
Yes. Wow. So they combined the two things together, and the fact that they kept the song so close to the actual Van Halen song is kind of a work of genius. But yeah, this was perfect topical humor for the time. I think it still works. I'd be curious to know what Sammy or Haskell thinks, having not been there. I mean, was it still funny to you watching it, or didn't it work for you?
Well, for me, believe it or not, I was born in '95. I've had Crystal Pepsi because they released it late in the last decade. They re-released
they
it
did.
for a short run, so I had it. I didn't. I don't know why, but it's not something I didn't know what Crystal Pepsi was. Like maybe I just drink too much soda and like I've like known about all the variants. So like I always liked it. I SNL does this good thing. I don't know if it's something that has happened more recently, but definitely past eras of the show, SNL can do food really good and they keep it really simple, right? Like little chocolate donuts, very simple, right? Same thing here. It's like this is a very kind of simple joke. They don't go out of their way to make it like they literally just took gravy and made it clear to quote Sammy, it looked like jizz. On this show, we're allowed to go vulgar if we say it really quickly. I really enjoyed that. The only thing I don't like about this sketch is that by rewatching it and I'm hosting. I just bought my first house in August, hosting our first Thanksgiving. I would really like to print out a label for Crystal Gravy and put like, I don't know, like corn syrup in it or something and just see people like look at it. But while trying to research it, I did find a blog where some guy, I don't know how many years ago, tried to make Crystal Gravy. And I'm really mad that I had to see that. But besides that, again, wonderful Thanksgiving sketch.
Yeah, no, and for me, as to answer your question on whether or not I found it to be funny, yeah, this is one that I remembered like as like a kid being on some sort of best of like Thanksgiving or whatever. And there are some times where there'd be a commercial parody that like was totally dated and had like such a specific sort of thing it was trying to emulate, which I didn't fully get, but I think now, like, yeah, I do think it's funny. I think like the way, like the juxtaposition of like the music and like the actual visual of everything, like even like, again, like I clearly didn't know until like after I watched the sketch, like, oh, it's Crystal Pepsi. Because I think it was in a YouTube comment. And that's, I'm outing myself that's I made the connection. Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I think it helps if you know the reference, but, I don't think it's a make or break sort of thing. Haskell, let's go back to you, buddy. What's your pick for this category?
I'm really torn between two, and I'm torn between the one that everybody's kind of been alluding to. I think maybe I'm going to be an idiot and completely go off the rails, but because we have a wild card, I'm going to leave the other one for my wild card in case you don't use it because it really has to get mentioned. But I'm going to go with the big one that I think, again, is a really classic moment from this past era. I'm going with Back Home Ballers. This music video, there was something about this one that, like, because the season before they did Do It in My Twin Bed. I think just talking to people, I know talking to my wife who loves both of those, she always is like, Back Home Ballers was the first one, and it wasn't. I think probably it has to do with the idea of coming home like from college and stuff, probably resonated a little bit more than banging in your twin bed to like everybody. So that's why this one went a little bit more viral. But it's just, that's like a moment in SNL time. Cause I think for a minute, like it felt like, oh, this is like a new thing. And they went back to that with like having the entire female cast come out and do these songs. And they've in small ways, they went back to that, maybe not with everybody or maybe not in the same themes like they were doing. So this kind of not only was the high point of this, it kind of never really came back in this same exact way again. So it was an important moment for that female cast to kind of do this. It was really for me kind of when Leslie Jones joined the cast, and I'm a huge Leslie Jones fan. Obviously, to begin her tenure there was struggles and there was a kind of a learning curve. And you could tell early in her tenure, they were kind of like, when you put in a backup quarterback, give them easy throws, right? They were giving Leslie Jones some like easier roles to get her comfortable. This is one of those. And I will tell you, it's been, almost 10 years now, which sounds crazy to think about, right? And I still, in my household, Me and my wife cannot grab a bowl in our house without saying bowls, all types of bowls. Like, so it's just one of those. It sticks with you. It's obviously stuck with a bunch of people, and it was one of those sketches that I think got outside of the SNL fandom. And I think there's probably a lot of people who watched that sketch of a certain age, probably college students at that time, that probably didn't even know it was from SNL.
Yeah, no, this is definitely the other one I was alluding to earlier, and totally kind of penetrated like the culture at least. And again, maybe there is a sort of thing with us being around the same age, Haskell, that this sketch came out like when like we were in college and coming back home for the holidays, and yeah, everyone I know like around my age, like really, this sketch really resonated with them. And my sister, again, bring her up, like she'll text her friends like around this time, like it's time to be the back home bowlers, like I know she has said that in the past. So Haynes, do you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, so this is what I thought you were alluding to, and it is certainly a modern classic. For anyone who forgets which one came first, just remember the very first thing they say in Back Home Ballers is "We're back." So that's a little bit of a hint. And then, but it's just full of so many great lines, and it's so relatable. Like it's full of all these things that you can relate to these things. You've lived these things. If I'm sure parents are used to kids coming back and doing these type of things. I know, the joy of coming home from college and doing a load of laundry for just one sock, and I love the girls when they're in this mode. It's full of tons of great lines. I really love the one where Cecily's like, it sounds like my mama needs help in the kitchen. But if she thinks I'm moving, then that bitch be tripping. Like I always get such a hard laugh out of that. These young people who really just don't appreciate, how much their parents love them. And I've been that person. Like you just don't know how much your parents love you and want to do stuff for you when you come home. But as like a college kid, like you just totally take advantage of it. We've got this great little break in it. I mean, anything with Lil Baby 80's awesome, but you got this little break where, I think maybe she goes out to check the mail or something, and then she runs into Jean, the neighbor. It's like, asking her about her life, and she doesn't know how to answer these questions. And it's just stuff that we've all been through. And then she ends it with like, "Okay, Jean, bye," and it's super awkward. And I'm guessing I also love that Jean is like a recurring character, because I think it is in Twin Bed when she's like, "And now it's a whole thing with Jean." She's talking about her mom like
she got a cough.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And so this is just top to bottom an absolute instant classic. I really love the joke about the long Wi-Fi password that just goes on and on and on and on, and 17 X's and 127. So just a fantastic sketch. I knew we'd talk about it. I'm glad we got to.
I don't have a lot to add. It is very relatable. And I think that as coming home as a college kid, Christmas was kind of stressful and there were so many things going on. And, it wasn't all about Thanksgiving. If you were the kid coming home, you were treated like she comes out the door and she's treated like a queen. You were treated like a king or a queen when you came home, because people had time. You had Thanksgiving Day, but then you had the whole weekend after that to kind of, get all the accolades from how's school going, what's going on. So that was a very relatable thing. And I love the run over Gene. I mean, you gotta love when they can bring something back like that only a true fan could get. So great pick.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I miss, living in LA, because when I would come home for the holidays and stuff, people would treat me like a king. People were like hitting me up. It's like, where are you at? Like, I want to see you. And now no one wants to see me now. So, all right. So I got the super fans. I'm thankful for the super. All right. For my pick, Haskell, because we're a lot of times we're on the same wavelength, I'm curious if I'm going to steal your pick here for what was you're going to maybe do for your wild card, but I don't really care, but we'll see. I'm going to go with the Black Friday sketch from Bobby Moynihan. Okay, I'm seeing this might have not been your pick, so this is interesting. So yeah, the Black Friday sketch. This sketch is it's a kind of a commercial parody of basically Bobby. It's really a solo piece for Bobby Moynihan. There's not really, I think, any other cast members in it, where he is the manager of the Mega Mart, clearly a Walmart parody of some sort. And you're getting ready for Black Friday, and it's clearly like this was like maybe at the height of Black Friday, I would say, because it's clearly since Amazon obviously becoming bigger and just online shopping in general becoming bigger, like the fever around Black Friday that you used to feel is just not there anymore. But this is like around the time where like people were getting trampled at Walmart, and there were casualties for cheaper PlayStation 3s and stuff like that. So the sketch is basically talking about why you should come to the Mega Mart for Black Friday. They let you know that there's gonna be a 12-minute madness sale on iPads for $29 and a secret unpublished Harry Potter book, and there's only 7 copies left. And they're saying how they've waxed the floors, so you can slide in for those savings. And I don't know, just the escalation in this sketch is really great. Between they say they're giving you free box cutters at the door. They're saying the aisles are super narrow, and all the good stuff's at the back of the store. And there's an announcer that's going like fire hazard, and just like I don't know. The sketch also kind of reminds me of like the underground sketches that like they would do with Jason Sudeikis and Nassim. Maybe because Ask Dan himself is in this one as well. But I don't know, something about the editing kind of reminds me of those sketches that I also love. And I do want to also shout out Anne Hathaway, who is the host for this episode. She's like the only other person, besides like extras to appear in this sketch, where they're showing all these people standing in line, and they're giving out free Four Loko because it's sponsored by Four Loko. And she's like this lady who's like jacked up on Four Loko, who's super excited about waiting in line to buy a Disney scrapbooking kit. And it says on like the top left of the screen that there's only 20 hours to go until doors open. So just a really like tight, smart pre-tape with a lot of good observations. And this is like kind of like the quintessential sort of character that Bobby Moynihan was like really good at playing, like having that incredible energy. And he's always like kind of playing these characters that could like really lose it at any second. So yeah, I really loved revisiting this Black Friday pre-tape. Does anyone want to jump in on this one?
When you talk like a moment in time, again, like that's what these holiday sketches are all about. Like, as I become just a cranky old man in my late 20s, like I'm really starting to really feel nostalgic for that time that I grew up in, really the late 2000s and those 2010s. And it is something crazy to think about. Like, we're obviously all old enough to have lived through that Black Friday craze, but there's going to be a time where that was just like a blip on the radar. It didn't exist for a long time. It showed up. It was all over the news for years. You always heard about Black Friday. And now online shopping has kind of stopped that from happening. So it's really cool to look back. It's a really good kind of time capsule to be like, I'm sure there's people, even kids nowadays, that would look back and be like, I don't really get what they're going for. Like, why was it like that? But it's cool to look back. That line about you got to open boxes, or there's a ton of boxes, so everyone's getting a box cutter. On my rewatch, that got the hardest laugh from me. And Bobby is, like you said, that's his type of character. This like so into the absurd and can like get you jacked up for anything. Was something that he was so good at. So really glad this was not the sketch that I was thinking of. I definitely had it on my short list though, so I'm glad we talked about it.
Yeah, such a great point about I didn't even think about that how this was kind of a moment in time. I've never been a Black Friday shopper. I've gone out once to get a flat screen TV like in 2008, and that was about it. I do all my shopping online for a good 20 years now, and that's it. Like, I'm not, but my wife and my sisters would be sitting around Thanksgiving Day and circling the ads, and we're going here at 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving, and we're going there at 7:15, and and they'd come back and they look like they came out of a war because it was so ridiculous. And I'm sitting there drinking a beer and watching the football game. So yes, it's such a perfect moment in time to remember, and thank goodness it's mostly over.
I mean, that's one of the first things I thought about too. Yeah, is this Black Friday phase was just kind of, not everyone's gonna relate to this like down the line or remember that this was a thing. But that's what we love about SNL. I love going back and watching old episodes of SNL and being reminded about these these moments in culture, these cultural existences that just aren't around anymore. It gives us a glimpse into what American life was like at the time. Never been a big Black Friday person, never. Either. I also went out once, I think in like 2010 or 2011. I went and tried to, at like 6 a.m. to get a tablet. It was not worth it. Turned out to be a crappy tablet anyway. But yeah, hey, Black Friday is not the only moment in time here too. I mean, you mentioned Four Loko, so it's like, and I remember when kids used to go crazy on that stuff. But like you said, quintessential Bobby Moynihan character. So it's got the Hunger Games kind of, fight for survival vibes, which was really the tale of these Black Friday events. A great pick.
Yeah, and just got to shout out my dad really quick before we move on to the next category. Took me in, I think, 2009 at like 2 or 3 in the morning to a Walmart to get a PlayStation 3 because they had a deal. It was like the regular price PS3 Slim, but it came with Batman Arkham Asylum, Infamous, and The Dark Knight on Blu-ray. We got the last one in the store. Shout out to my dad. That's like an $150 value right there. Oh, all right. Moving on to the next category. Haynes, we're going to start with you for our wild card. So this could be, anything you want to shout out or, anything that didn't fit into the other category.
Thank you so much for giving me that privilege. I wouldn't be surprised, if anyone here on this, even though I think what I'm taking is, it's not the deepest cut, but it's certainly not something that gets referenced the way Back Home Ballers does. But I wouldn't put it past anyone of the Superfans to, pull this out and take it away from me. So I'm so glad I get to do this one. It's so stupid, but it's just really good. This one is from the magical year of 1996. And it is when one of our favorite cast members of all time came back to host. This is Thanksgiving song auditions, and the judge or director or whoever is taking these auditions is Phil Hartman, who's our beloved Phil Hartman, who was back to host. And so, basically, we've got Hartman as the director or something, and we're going to have people come out on the stage and audition Thanksgiving songs. I don't even know what for. Like, what are we auditioning Thanksgiving songs for? But we're auditioning Thanksgiving songs. First one out is Molly Shannon, and she's tipsy. She's doing this raunchy, like 1940s style bit where she's from New Orleans and she's singing about booze, and it's obviously not going to work as a Thanksgiving song. And then Daryl Hammond comes out as a country guy, and he's doing one of those classic like Beers and Tears country songs, about being alone on Thanksgiving, and the very last line of the song is like, "The only turkey here," and there's a long pause, "is me." And so it's there. And then Tracy Morgan comes out as a reggae guy. I love that he just yells like, "Selecta, come down," to like start it off. It's so funny to me. And he's like, the beat comes in, he's doing this reggae thing, and he's singing like, I got this that I'm thankful for. I got this. I got the ganja man. And Phil's reaction to the reggae one in particular is just he's completely flabbergasted. His jaw is, on the floor. And that's what this whole sketch is about, is the whole thing is Phil's reactions, basically. I mean, listen, the performances are great as well, but each of the individual song performances, some of them are really fun, actually. But to me, it's Phil's reactions that's really selling the sketch. We get Anna Gasteyer as like this Lisa Loeb type character. She's from LA and she's hip and she's cool and she's singing like her, kind of her critical of Thanksgiving song, going like, "What if the stuffing was you, man?" And Phil Hartman's reaction to that is, "Thank you. We don't validate parking." And we got Jim Brewer coming out as this wild rock guy. His is maybe the best. I love his, and he does a song that I'm guessing is probably called "Devil Turkey," which is just really awesome and hilarious. If you haven't seen the sketch, please go watch it. Tim Meadows doing his smooth, sexy Thanksgiving vibe, and then the last one that comes out, it's a duo. It's Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan as Tommy and Steven from Orlando, and they're hilarious. They do this big show tune, and then they've got their glittery hats and their vests on, and they're jumping and hugging. They're so proud that they got through it. It's just, it's like a classic, look at America's Got Talent kind of folks, like backstage after they do some sort of performance like this. It's just really it's dumb, but you get a lot of great cast members coming in and selling these stupid songs, and then of course you have Phil Hartman's amazing straight man reactions to all this stuff. To me, this is just a really great sketch. So I'm glad I got a chance to bring it up. Thank you for calling on me first. I love this sketch.
It's only fair. Yeah, no, this sketch is also really fun to me because it's like I associate, even though like it was only 2 years after Phil Hartman had left the show, like you associate like that kind of delineation between those eras is such a fine line because there's such big cast turnover. So getting to revisit a sketch from one of the 2 episodes that he hosted was a lot of fun. Haskell, I'm going to go over to you first. Do you have any thoughts on the Thanksgiving song audition sketch?
Yeah, I think Haynes kind of hit the nail on the head, though, that like his reaction is so vital to this sketch, like because it is kind of like this bucket sketch of like these different like characters or even quasi impressions that the cast members had, but his reaction is all of it. If you go back and you look for the sketch on YouTube, which you should if you haven't seen it, the thumbnail is him because he's got like his pen up and he's very like he's got that like serious reaction. And I love sort of the direction of the sketch because every time we cut back for his reaction, it's this very tight shot of Phil Hartman. Like there's people sitting to his left and right, but when we go back to him, it's this tight shot. And I always took that shot as a very like cartoon shot. And I can't really see that in his reaction. And to me, it always brings up memories of Phil Hartman's characters on The Simpsons. And that's sort of what I get out of this with the direction and his reactions and all of that. And really, I mean, if you want to talk about kind of family and Thanksgiving and feeling that warm feeling, give me Phil Hartman on The Simpsons on top of Phil Hartman on SNL. So great selection, Heinz.
Yeah, this was also on my short list. And, if people ever wonder why we want these alumni to come back and host, this is a perfect encapsulation of that. To see someone, as you said, Sammy, only 2 years later, but it's a completely different cast. And to see some of the up-and-comers, the Annas and the Tim Meadows, who was there with Phil, but and Tracy Morgan at the beginning of his tenure, to see them work together is such a warm feeling. And I believe this is the first time Anna Cinder Calhoun appears. She ends up doing this character a few more times. So yeah, I mean, it's a great pull. It's something that, of course, we all know, but hopefully people who are listening or watching this go back and find it on YouTube and appreciate Phil's greatness.
I have to mention something. I forgot. I should have said this during my little spiel, and it just crossed my mind. But this is really interesting to me. When I was watching this episode, I noticed, I was on Peacock, and so that fall of 1996 included a stretch from October to December of 5 straight returning cast members to host, which I'm not sure when we've, when any other time that anything like that's happened. But we had, I think Dana Carvey was first, and then Chris Rock, Robert Downey Jr., Phil Hartman, Martin Short, which one doesn't belong, and actually, the week before Carvey was Lisa Kudrow, who auditioned, but didn't ever make it onto the cast. So I just thought that was really interesting. And something else of note, it was the November 9th episode that they took off as the break week, which would have been the first Saturday after the 1996 election, when Slick Willie was reelected over Bob Dole. So very different mode than the last several years, where we've been really putting so much emphasis on these election shows. But I just thought that was interesting, just noticing that giant stretch, kind of, and the fact that they took off that election date.
No, that's a good point. And that kind of 5 former cast member host run is probably something we'll never see again, just with the way the show books hosts these days. But all right, Haskell, let's go on over to you with your pick for the wild card category. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so originally for this wild card, I had a very culturally important weekend update bit earmarked, but I already did my part for choosing the obvious answers. So I'm going to go with a different one. I'm going to go with a pre-tape that has, for some reason, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, has kind of popped up as a viral hit again. I'm seeing it come up on Twitter, even on TikTok. So I'm going with Heinz Relax from a few years ago. Again, Will Ferrell, an all-time cast member coming back to host. The idea is that he is embarrassed by the idea that the Heinz makes fart noises, much like I'm embarrassed by. I can't do this podcast without my cats ever trying to make appearances, but he's embarrassed by the fart noises. So they come up with Heinz Relaxed, which instead releases a erotic noise, maybe a female erotic noise, which comes with its own sort of reactions. But it's classic Will Ferrell, who is embarrassed and he's on edge, classic Will Ferrell, but then is so blatantly ignorant to the fact of what it is. Kyle Mooney has a great moment where he wants to take the ketchup up to his bedroom, and 80 is like, what do you want? What are you doing? What are you doing? And Will Ferrell gives perfect delivery of the boy likes ketchup, must take after his dad. And they even play with the noises a little bit, which is great. At one point we do switch from maybe a more female sounding voice to a more male sounding voice, which playing with that is a great point. So I could not have gone through this Superfan Takeover without mentioning that.
That is that's a great pick, and not necessarily a deep cut because it's from such a recent episode, but one that I didn't think about bringing up for this episode, and that's a really fun pick. The Heinz Relaxed. Haynes or Bill, do either of you want to jump in on this one?
Very funny. Anytime you do funny noises like this, we've seen it work in David Pumpkins. It's hilarious. Something about the innate nature of comedy, just to hear those ridiculous noises come out of a ketchup bottle, works. So yeah, great pick.
I was going to say my whoopee cushion, when I got my first whoopee cushion when I was 8 or 9 years old, it was my prized possession, there's just something funny about, about these types of noises. So yeah, great pick.
For sure. Bill, we're going to go back to you. And what is your wild card going to be?
Well, I could go with the obvious one too, but I'm going to make John sweat thinking that we're not going to mention the elephant in the room. I'm going to go with my favorite monologue of all time. This goes all the way back to season 2. We've got Paul Simon in the house, 5-timer, and he comes out dressed as a turkey and starts singing "Still Crazy After All These Years." And he gets about half a half a section in and just stops. He's so embarrassed. He's at the top of his game. He's such a huge megastar at this point, and he can't believe he's dressed as a turkey. And it's one of the first times that we really see a little bit of backstage. We don't go as deep as we do later on, but we get to see the risers, we get to see the seats, and he meets Lauren at those double doors that we know so well, and complains about it and says he can't believe he's doing this. And Lauren's like, no, it worked. And he storms off to his dressing room, and Lauren says, we'll be right back. It's only about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, but it's clean, it's tight, and it's so damn funny, even today, to see, somebody like this. I don't know that they would do something like this today. Maybe if Justin Timberlake comes back and you dress him this as something like this, but very funny monologue and perfect with the Thanksgiving theme.
Yeah, no, this is a really good pick. There's a lot of sketches. Well, maybe not a lot, but for the amount of Thanksgiving sketches there are, there's a number of sketches where you put the cast or the host in a big old turkey suit, and it just automatically is funny. There's a turkey's just a funny animal, as Sarah Sherman had made reference to in the most recent episode of SNL. Haynes or Haskell, do either of you want to comment on the Paul Simon monologue?
I just love that, almost 50 years in now, it's hard to not admit that SNL is this well-oiled machine. And I think Lawrence still likes to lean into the idea that it's not, even, 48 years in, he still likes to say, we don't go on because we're ready. We go on because it's 11 o'clock. And I think that's an attitude that he just wants to keep ingrained in the show. But it is hard to say, it's not like everybody talks about how fantastic that crew is and how great they are at their job. So I do appreciate a sketch, and obviously that one's from very early on, that shows SNL is not that well-oiled machine. And, that's obviously meta humor. We saw a version of something like that in the Dave Chappelle episode recently with the Mikey Day filling in for him, and being like, I shouldn't be doing this. I always you can't go to that well too much, but I do like sketches where SNL breaks down a little bit and we see SNL as this living organism. And we go behind the scenes and we see that, SNL isn't just this TV show where it's meticulously thought out. It's this almost like this world that, most of us can't even imagine being a part of. So, and that's one of the earliest examples of really getting to see SNL in that light.
Yeah, this is as classic as it gets. I mean, this is something that I remember from a time before I might even have really even been into SNL. Just as a young kid, I remember them, replaying this. I guess it's just always been so classic. I remember when I was in 7th grade, just starting to get into SNL. And there was another kid in the neighborhood, I guess, whose parents had exposed him to it a little bit more. And that was a sketch that we talked about. That was one of the things that he was like, oh, have you seen Paul Simon in the turkey suit? And we were both big music heads and stuff. So we knew music and stuff. This is quintessential SNL Thanksgiving, and I'm kind of shocked that we got this far into the episode before it got brought up. But I'm glad we talked about it, and I didn't even rewatch it before this because I just knew we were going to talk about it. But now that we've talked about it, I kind of want to go rewatch it right now. So maybe I'll watch it in a few minutes.
Yeah, no, that let us know if you do that, I guess. I don't know. All right, I'm going to go over to my wild card here. I think you guys you're being nice to your boy Sammy here and then letting me have this one. So I appreciate it. I'm going to go with the Adam Sandler Thanksgiving song. Just another classic sort of thing that you're going to always see in the Best Up special. That this one probably has its spot in the compilation. It's just a classic. Adam Sandler is at the update desk and he says how there's not really many Thanksgiving songs, so he decided to write a Thanksgiving song. He's talking about all the things you do on Thanksgiving, about the turkey and the the family time and whatever, but in the kind of perfect Adam Sandler way. He's just rhyming all these things that have to do with Thanksgiving with just like ridiculous sort of things just to get the rhyme off. There's a couple lines on here I wanted to shout out, like love to eat the turkey at the table. I once saw a movie with Betty Grable. Turkey and sweet potato pie. Sammy Davis Jr. only had one eye. Turkey for girls and turkey for the boys. My favorite kind of pants are corduroys. Lots of great lines in this song. And something else that I want to point out is, I feel like Kevin Nealon's Weekend Update character was just like very much like the straight man. Like obviously a lot of Weekend Update anchors have that, but I think his especially will have the straight man routine. And, towards the end of the song, he kind of breaks that character and, sings along with Adam, which I think makes this, kind of an extra special moment. And I think you can, definitely trace back. I feel like we've talked about a lot of Adam Sandler's Weekend Update pieces on the Superfan Takeovers. I know we definitely talked about it on the Rookie special we did recently, but you can kind of trace back his stardom and his rise to fame to these songs merely because, he made that connection with the audience by, presenting himself, being himself, doing his kind of humor, and also a smart kind of business-oriented thinking of, I'm going to make a song that people can play on Thanksgiving, and that happens every year. I'm going to make a song that can play during Hanukkah that, happens every year. So, this one is a lot of fun. Thankful for you guys letting me bring this one to the table so I didn't have to scramble. Does anyone want to jump in on the Adam Sandler Thanksgiving song?
Yeah, I mean, he anybody who says Sandler is overrated on SNL doesn't know what they're talking about. Let's get that right out of the way. This man, especially at the Weekend Update desk, was a genius. And to do a song for two holidays that don't really have a lot of songs, Hanukkah and Thanksgiving, and that they still permeate the culture almost 30 years later. I dare you not to sing the Thanksgiving song to yourself as you're walking around. Turkey for me, turkey for you. Let's eat turkey in a big brown shoe. I mean, it's just right there for you. It's so simple. And he was a master of this. Between these songs and Opera Man, he was so great. And great pick. And you're welcome.
This is Thanksgiving culture. This is what I'm talking about when I say Thanksgiving needs more culture. It's planes, trains, and automobiles, and it's Adam Sandler's Thanksgiving song. I live in an area of the country. I'm in the Northeast where we have a handful of radio stations that get on the Christmas music very early, pre-Thanksgiving. But they always make sure to throw this in to like kick it off. And they play this a ton before Thanksgiving because it is the Thanksgiving song. So a huge part of Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I mean, as Bill said, he creates songs for the two holidays that, didn't have super famous, like mainstream songs. You still sing them today. They're both, not only did he create them, but like he created the best, he really was an absolute genius. I mean, all I can say is, turkey and sweet potato pie. Sammy Davis Jr. only have one eye. I mean, he really was a genius at the desk. And, maybe if people, just to comment on the point about, people, thinking he's overrated or whatever, like I know he's been in a lot of movies and, people aren't watching every movie that comes out. It's not the way it was in the mid 90s, and he's continued to just pump out stuff. But for you younger folks, you just don't understand. And this was like, I mean, how old was he? 23 or something? I don't know, something like that. And just being a genius, constantly at the Weekend Update desk. This is such a great pick, Sammy. I just want to apologize to you for picking the Hanukkah song. Back when we did another holiday special, especially the Jews are having it tough right now. I'm glad that you're getting the Thanksgiving song. Congratulations.
Doing your
Great
part
pick.
there, Haynes. Doing your part.
Hands, until today, I wasn't sure if you were an ally or not, and now I know. So, I appreciate you. I'm thankful, and I'm thankful that we've done it. We've done the greatest Thanksgiving moments of all time, Superfan Takeover. For as how we mentioned before, how there weren't as many sketches to talk about as we maybe anticipated. There are a lot of sketches that we missed. So, if you're angry with us that we didn't mention, your favorite Thanksgiving sketch, feel free to, tweet at us, comment. We'd love to hear what are some of your favorite Thanksgiving sketches of SNL history. Before we go, I'm going to let the panel here give some plugs. I'm going to start with you, Haskell. Thanks for being on the show tonight. I know you have some things to plug, so let's hear it.
I have stand-up dates all around New England. Hope to see you guys there. I'm not going to plug anything, though. I just want to say, seriously, to all of the fans of this podcast, let us do this. Like, you guys, I'm super thankful for you guys. We kind of joke about it. Numbers weren't good after season 1 of us doing this, and we really rebounded. We have a lot of fun doing this with you guys, so I appreciate that. And to you three guys, I personally have had a super long week. And a lot of work, a lot of comedy stuff, but to be able to kind of chop it up with you guys is such a highlight, and it's so relaxing. Like I said, I bought a house in August, and we've done a couple Superfan Takeovers since then. I've invited you guys into my area, like more than like a lot of my friends, just because they haven't been over. So, in the spirit of the season, I'm so thankful for this podcast. And to be able to just kind of kick it with you guys every so often. I really do consider you guys friends, and appreciate getting to continue to do this with you guys.
Oh, God, Haskell's trying to make me cry on the podcast. Sorry. We gotta wrap this up. Bill, let's. What do you got to tell the people?
I don't know how I follow that, but I will kind of piggyback off that, and I'm very thankful for you guys as well. I'm thankful for the people who listen. This is always a relief and a fun time. The other podcasts that we do on this network are a lot of fun, but something about these, the relaxed nature, and knowing you guys now for 2.5 years, it's such an easy flow, and it's a lot of fun to come on and rap with you guys. So thankful for all you guys. Follow me at BK Love 73.
Absolutely. Haynes, go ahead.
I mean, Haskell's already stolen the show with the outro here, but yeah, got me feeling warm and fuzzy, like the beginning of a Jack Handy story before the tragic ending. Just so great to be on with everyone, especially. I mean, these holiday shows. It's just fun to run through all this stuff and get to chat about it with everybody. So just thankful, I guess, is the word, of the season, and to be here with you guys and doing this, and looking forward to the next one. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I thank you guys so much as always for being on the panel tonight. This episode was super fun. You guys can find me at Sammy Kay on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and be sure to check out all the past Superfan takeovers that we have done. I think I was looking today, we've done 15 already, so this is our 16th. It's kind of crazy to think that we have such a catalog, and I just to kind of, speak on some of the stuff that Haskell was talking about, just super thankful for you guys, thankful for John for, kind of bringing us all together, and, I really, for people who I've never met, sometimes I feel closer to you guys than, people I've known for since back in my middle school days, who I haven't talked to in a couple months. So, and I think a lot of it has to do with our shared love of SNL and how passionate we are, and how I feel like I'm always finding new insights and new things I want to go revisit when I talk to you guys. So just very thankful for you guys. Thankful for you guys at home for watching the Superfan Takeovers and keeping us on the air for a third season. I don't know. Looking ahead, let's move all the sappy stuff aside. Looking ahead at what we got going here on the Saturday Night Network. we have on Wednesday a new edition of SNL Stories. This is actually very exciting. I think it's already been announced. But to remind you, if you haven't seen it already, we have an interview with former SNL cast member and SNL band member and all-around legend Paul Schaefer, as well as Tom Bones Malone, who is also a member of the SNL band, which is very exciting. So you guys want to check that out, as well as we have another edition of Point Counterpoint, which is our kind of debate-style show, and that will be with TJ Randolph and Andrew Dick, and that will be the following Monday. So, as we're on hiatus from new episodes of SNL, you guys have a lot of content to consume, over this holiday break. And be sure to stay tuned to everything we are doing here at the Saturday Night Network on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And again, just feeling very thankful. I got to thank, Bill, Heinz, and Haskell, and everyone watching. We hope you enjoyed the show tonight, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Night Network. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.